in your opinion, who is surfing for?
Surfing's for everybody, as much as I don't want, I want to go out and catch as many waves as I want without anybody in the way. Like surfing's for everyone. This is like I just said, like God is sending these waves. That's what I believe. And so I want everybody to be able to feel that feeling that I get, feel that extra connection that you have with the world and with the earth. As much as people are dicks and don't want you to get out there, like it's for you, it's
Yeah.
can't let anybody get in your way. If you want to do it, go do it.
Andy Williams, welcome to the pod, dude.
Happy to be here.
Andy, owner, founder of StrandedTikiSurfboards. I don't know if you did any research at all, but pod's kind of all about perspective and stuff and on being outside. You're if you have time chasing good swell, while an older gentleman could be chasing reds on the coast, right? Common ground, kind of being outside, but let's get into it. What tell us about Stranded Tiki a little bit.
Stranded Tiki.
How you got started, when you got started, why you got started.
So Stranded Tiki got started kind of it was just for fun at first. I started surfing after a church trip, actually. We went to Galveston. Our youth director was a cool, surfer dude. His name's Blake. And he took us all out. And then, I'd always, skateboarded and stuff. And so it was just fun. So I was able to catch on to it quick. And then my dad was in the military, and he had a conference or something in Hawaii. And so I went there and then kind of even more got into it. So after that, they had a church raffle. It was some kind of thing for one of the sermons they were giving. And our youth director and one other guy made a board. So the raffle was to win a board. And so I was like, whoa, I didn't know you can make those. So that's kind of what started oh, I want to make one.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it's expensive, and I was in high school, so sports and blah, blah, blah. But so then once I graduated, I had just been working. I was a lifeguard and swim coach. And so I had a little bit more money, and I was like, hey, I'm going to try it. So I ordered a kit and made one. And then as I was making one, my mom was like, what are you going to put on it? I was like, I didn't think about that. So I was kind of just throwing around stuff, and I was like, hey, I'll just, come up with a little brand name. And then I just randomly came up with Stranded Tiki, honestly. Kind of the meaning behind it came later, but I was like, Stranded Tiki sounds pretty cool. So,
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's how it started. And so it started from liking to surf and wanting to surf more. So I was like, and I've always, building stuff, and just took off from there.
Cool.
Names are so interesting. We were even talking about this earlier, when you come up with a name for anything. Yours sounds like maybe it was a little more centralized. For Pakmule, it was an email with a bunch of ideas that I'd gathered over time to a bunch of buddies. And then a friend of ours kind of did the same thing, trying to name a beer a handful of years ago. And it's always interesting to consider this thing that is a stamp that will exist, for some indefinite period of time.
For the most part, you're stuck with it too.
Yeah.
Really, you hear stories of people changing branding and stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's not like your high school email that you came up with, and then later on you're like, that's really terrible, I'm deleting that. I'm going to change my email address.
I still have mine.
But it's a lot to change. I've actually gone through and thought about changing it a couple times, but it was just I don't know, after you get to a point, everybody knows you as this. So if you redo it, no matter how many followers or anything you have, you kind of have to put that name back out there. And
for sure. Tell us about the name now, what it means to you now. How's that changed?
So Stranded was just kind of cool word. That's kind of, I started with that, and then I've always just kind of liked tikis. Tiki bars,
cool
little tiki heads, at pools and stuff. I just always thought they were pretty sick. Yeah. And so Stranded, it was just kind of alone in your own space. And so when you think of that, you think of something bad. But you could be stranded somewhere on a beautiful island or in a beautiful place, or somewhere that you wouldn't normally be, but it could turn out to be good. So, it's kind of a mixture of making the best of things, and as well as separating myself from any other brand, any other like surf brand or and stuff like that. So so it kind of has multiple things, but I really kind of like I said, it was just random at first. So I really started digging after a while, and then I was like, hey, I'll keep it. So on my boards now, I kind of just put Stranded on everything.
Okay.
I've kind of just been playing around with just different ways to ride it and to orient it on boards, and it just worked out.
Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that the audience should know real fast, and maybe this is part of the intro, is that Andy you're from Houston or from Dickinson?
From Dickinson.
So closer to the coast than Houston was to the coast, but now lives in San Antonio. Sort of the hook is San Antonio guy that shapes boards for the Texas coast.
Right?
Yeah. We were talking about before you came in, and you're like 1,000% the only board maker in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And San Antonio, probably beyond that though. I mean, talk about like, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
People surf in Texas. What?
Literally. And there's people in Texas that don't even believe that you can surf in Texas.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but it's a bigger community in San Antonio than you'd think. Like, I shape boards in a storage unit right now. And so there's been, not crazy amount, but probably like 10 or 12 times between when I started there and now that people will drive by and stop and back up and be like, oh shit. Like, oh, sorry. I didn't know.
There you go. You're good.
He's like, oh, like, do you make those? And I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, yeah, I used to surf and this and that. I want to get back into it. That kind of just starts. And then there would be some people like, oh, I want to buy one. And then, that's how it starts. So
that's awesome.
I got more kind of just random attention here than I did at home, in Dickinson.
That blows my mind a little bit.
The coolest thing has actually just happened. So 2 years ago, I was pulling up to the shop storage unit, and there was a board leaning up against the wall. It was like an old, beat up looking board. I was like, oh, this is cool. No note, no nothing. And so I was like, all right. So I took a picture of it and I put it on my story. And this was kind of when I was just starting to, kind of get more attention in Texas. And I was like, what should I do with it? Like, it's cool, a vintage board, kind of has a cool style, but like it was old, it was broken, I wasn't gonna ride it. And so I posted on my story, and then 2 people right away were like, oh, it's my dad's brand. And it was this, I can't remember the name for the life of me, but it was a old brand in Corpus. And he was like, oh yeah, my dad made that. And that was it. And then maybe a year later, they're like, hey, do you still have that board? Like, we're telling my dad and he wants it. And so I was like, oh man, like I was a senior in college and I was an engineering major. So like I had 0 time. I then broke both of my ankles on separate occasions in the same year last year. So it was a long year. And so I just like kind of, honestly, I blew it off. So like I feel bad now because she reached out again. So I kind of took a break from social media. And so then when I got back on, I was going through all the DMs, and then his daughter was reaching out again. I was replying a year later, and I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like we can meet up soon. And so like, oh, I'll be in San Antonio in February. So I was like, cool. So she came up and she got it, and she was like, oh, he's going to be so stoked and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. And then later that day, I was on the way back from work and I got a call from a random number. And at work, like I call a lot of random people, so I've gotten accustomed to just answering, even if it's spam.
Yeah.
And so I answered it, and this guy was like, dude, like, thank you so much for the board, this and that. It was like, you like, I can't even believe. And then he was starting to like tear up. I was like, then I was just starting to put it together, like, oh, this is the guy who I just gave the board back to. And he was like, honestly, like, this is the board that changed my life. Like, I made boards in California with Ben Aipa, Timmy Patterson. These are like famous shapers. Like, and I was like, oh. And he was like, yeah. And I traveled to Hawaii and California to shape boards and to make my brand, the best here. And this was the board I made with Ben Aipa, who's now passed. So it's even a little bit more meaningful to him. And then he was like, yeah, like, and this is what kind of started my real career. And, the brand like made over 12,000 boards in 11 years or something like that, which is pretty insane. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting on this for 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was just like super grateful. And like, it was just an amazing experience. And like, I was just starting to get back into it. And it kind of jumped me back into getting back into board. Just like how happy, like he was in tears. Like that he was so happy to get this board back that I was just collecting dust in my shop.
Dang, man. That's crazy. And somebody just came and dropped that off?
Yeah. Still to this day, don't know where it came from.
It was just leaned up against your door?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, so somebody must have driven by and like, oh, like he'll probably enjoy that old board I have. And
that's incredible.
Even they don't know. Like he did like.
Yeah, it was probably in their shed and they were moving out and they're like,
literally,
I'll leave it with this surf kit.
Yeah, literally. And they, so he won the Texas Surf Championship on that board. And they have a picture of him like getting some air on a wave. And you can see like the big logo on the bottom. And I was like, what?
And you're like, that's that board.
Yeah, it was the same one. And
that's amazing.
Literally, they don't even know how it got, like, especially something so meaningful to him. Like, how did it get to San Antonio? Like, to this day, I don't know.
That's unbelievable. Great story, honestly.
Yeah, no, it was cool at first, and then nothing happened, and then like the end of it was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And now I have,
that's awesome.
Talk about surfing in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, you're kind of touching on it a little bit, but talk about the community of surfers in Texas first, I'd say.
So surfing in Texas, so I haven't been anywhere else, so I can't really compare it, but from what I can gather from what I've known from other people, it's no different than anywhere else. You know, like you have the locals that are out there every single day or every chance they get. You know, that's the one thing about Texas is that people don't realize is that there are waves, but every now and then, like it's not as consistent as you would get somewhere else. Not as nice as you'd get somewhere else. So I've heard a lot of times that if you can catch a wave in Texas, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just because they have no power and they're sloppy. But, you know, once or twice a year, you'll get out there and it's just insane. And, you know, a good storm coming through and it's just, you don't even really think you're in Texas because it's just out of this world. But so it's very, like anywhere else, you know, it's very centralized. You know, people who do it know other people who do it, but they don't want anybody else to do it. So it's like, even for me, like I could barely name anybody that I would know until I started making boards and started getting my name out there. I would go out and people would be like, "Oh, Stranded Tiki, I love your stuff," blah blah blah, and we'll be like, "Oh, Dickinson,
yeah,
like, oh
yeah."
And so, so it's weird. It's to me like the whole surfing community is weird. I guess it's like anything else. Like it's
expand on that.
It's just so inclusive.
Yeah.
Like no, they don't want anybody else to do it.
Interesting. Just because they're competitive.
So like if you're out there, I guess like fishing too. You know, if you don't want to tell people all your spots, because then next thing you know, you're going out there. Perfect conditions, you know, you're ready to go catch some fish, ready to go catch some waves, and there's 20 people out there right where you want to go. Yeah. So
and there's not as many options in Texas either.
Oh yeah.
You know, like there's a pier break, there's a jetty break, and then there's a bunch of slop on the beach.
Yeah.
And then every storm that comes through just switches everything up. Like a place that was the spot for me and Cam used to go there all the time. Yeah. And there was one hurricane, one of the last big like tropical storms. It started with, I think it was Lucy maybe, and it came through and just completely filled in all the sandbars. So like you could walk out to where we would surf knee deep the whole way when it would be, you know, like bars. Yeah. And so then that like just killed it. And there was only like 2 or 3 other spots that you could go to, and then I think it's, you know, switched up a little bit now. But yeah, there's not many places you can go. It's very rare that you can go on like a really, really nice day. And so you just don't want that many people out there. So part of me gets it. And part of me is like, you can't grow as an industry or as a sport if you only have X amount of people going. So it's a double-edged sword in that respect. But
gotcha. I feel like you've got to have just a little more of a different perspective on it because you're selling boards so that people will go surf, right?
So I'm biased
a little bit
in that respect.
Yeah.
But like the shaper part of me wants to, you know, if we can get 100 new people to surf, that's 100 new potential sales and 100 new people to spread the word.
Yeah.
And, it's just cool. Like it's a very cool, unique thing to do, unique feeling to have catching a wave. And, it's definitely something that, I'd want a lot of people to try out. But then the surfer part of me is like, when I go out there, only time I'm in San Antonio usually. So like, this is the only, I had to drive, 3 or 4 hours to get here to experience this. And when you just can't experience it the same way because there's a million people out there, it's just a little harder. So
it's interesting.
Conflicting ideals there, but it's different. And then me being a black surfer it's even more different because I've only seen one other person out there. I never met him or anything. I just kind of saw him. We're like, oh, look, that guy.
Yeah.
And then, but I met through.
What's his name? Do you know his name?
No, I still don't know that guy.
Okay.
But I've met other people since then. That was just the only one I saw out there, like just on a regular day. But I met a couple other people through this kind of Instagram page that's based out of California. It's just called Black Surfers. And they made it their mission to connect black surfers all over, the country. So I got connected with them pretty early on, and I met, 2 people right off the bat, and that was it.
Yeah.
Still to this day, like there's only 2 people I know that surf here.
That's interesting. Yeah. Talk about like your like goals with that, and like kind of your, I guess, mindset for changing narrative a little bit.
Well, yeah, I want to bring more, like, everybody has their own opinion on it. But, obviously white people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people all have their own kind of style.
Yeah.
And I want to bring, and so in surfing, it's only, I would say, in my opinion, it's only a white style.
For sure.
So I want to bring more black style into it. So like how you would say, like, bringing like people wearing Jordans, like primarily that was only black people wearing Jordans, but now you see a lot more people wearing Jordans. So I want to kind of have that impact on it. So not obviously bring more black people into it, but kind of creating more of a comfortable setting. Something that they would be more appealing to them. Like it's not a very common thing to do, even to go to the beach. It's very uncommon, and so like to have some kind of platform or some kind of some like surfboards or clothes or something to kind of make them more people interested in the brand and in the sport. And once they see it, that'll speak for itself. But as of right now, it's so exclusive and it's so old school. Like,
I think as a younger generation, or surfers that are younger, rather, is probably the better way to say it. They epitomize the stereotype of a surfer, long hair and like, come on, bro, like look at the grom on the board.
My name's Blade.
That whole like the old movie culture of surfing. What was Ridgemont High? What was his name? Spazzo or whatever? Not Spazzo. What was Fast Times? But what was anyways, doesn't matter. But very much that like, what's up, dude? We're really drilling out and we do this. And so the younger folks that are surfing feel like, well, as a surfer, they embody that stereotype a little bit. And it's a fun stereotype, right? It's like easy going and we like everything and everything's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then as people age and then they have to go to work, and so then their hair's cut a little shorter and these other things. And you go out to Port A or someplace and you see dads surfing on longboards and they're in like jean cut off shorts and they don't care about the style. They're just out having fun. They're almost like anti the style. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's really true, if they're really anti, but it's almost just like, who cares? I'm just out here having fun.
Right. And that's also goes hand in hand with all right, we don't want anybody else. We don't want all these young kids taking up our spots and bringing their fancy boards and their short shorts out here and this and that.
Yeah. It's so funny. You could probably find that in anything.
Spicoli. Spicoli. And the other interesting thing about it is that, the surfer, we were on a trip in Port A 3 weeks or 2 weeks ago, and I took a bunch of teenagers down there. Two of them were mine, and 2 of them were friends. And And so the car conversation was about, somebody's in my spot, and my son cut off his buddy, and like his buddy fell on the fin and cut himself. And he's like, man, if I wasn't your buddy, I'd have been wailing on you. And I said, isn't it interesting that how surfers have this like super cool laid back stereotype.
Yeah.
But then there's also this like fighting culture out in the water where that's mine. You get off my wave. And like there's some physicality that happens in the water that seems totally anti-surfer style.
They're chill about everything except when it comes to surfing.
Stealing,
it's like very like, stay away, this is mine.
Yeah. It's
there's like a form of etiquette too. Like when you're out there, it's like when a lot of new people are out there, they obviously don't know that.
Right.
So then that just kind of fuels the fire of like, stay away. This locals only, that very popular kind of ideal. You see it on signs and, beachy houses and stuff, locals only. So it's just.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mixed feelings.
Let me ask you this. Is that like mindset different in Texas? We have a few surf parks, surf ranches, surf whatever, cable parks, I guess. No, that's
another wave pools.
Yeah, wave
basically.
Things. Does anything change there? I feel like I know you go there a bit, just because it's easier to get to and it's a little more consistent. Consistent, obviously, yeah. But are there fighting over waves and stuff there too?
No, that one it's more organized. Right. Like so each person you're like in a line and then they let you go and let you go. Yeah. So you don't have that, but
and there's like a beginner wave and an intermediate and then an expert wave. And so the guys that are really good are probably on the expert wave with other experts that understand how to do it.
Gotcha.
And like if there was any of that, like it's broken up pretty quickly by the lifeguard and stuff there. Like, all right,
there's people running the show.
Yeah. No, gotcha. So it's more of a supervised environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no beach patrol like, off the beach. You were mean to that guy out in the ocean. You're out of here, buddy. Yeah. Find another ocean.
That's awesome. You're hunting and fishing and stuff as well, right? Yeah. You're obviously doing that first. Maybe talk about the differences in those sports. To me, I think we've had a conversation about this before, but to me, surfing is, as far as barriers to entry, pretty open sport. You just need one thing. It's really one thing. It's a board, right? And everything else is kind of given. The waves and stuff are all natural and all from.
And like you can go buy a board, maybe really baseline. You buy a board, and you go to the beach. And from there, you can figure it out yourself. Or look for other people with boards. That's kind of how I started doing it. I was like, in 5th grade or whatever, and my mom would pull up in her minivan, and we would go like to a spot, just like in the beach, and we'd see like another spot with surfers, and say, oh, they must know what they're doing, so I'm gonna go there.
Yeah,
that's
follow them.
Super easy. But hunting and fishing, it's like a whole other world. I think same mindset in some aspects.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want everybody at your spot.
Yeah.
But like hunting, I guess it's only your private property, so like, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But like fishing, you don't want everybody in your spot. But like, it's much more of an investment. No, probably same investment, but like more. You have to know more. You can't just go fish anywhere. You can't just. Well, I mean, I guess you can throw anything out.
Just try.
Go get a worm.
Yeah.
There's simple ways to do it, but. Fishing, I guess. Now I'm saying it. I think I think anybody can get into it just as easy as surfing. But hunting is that one.
Yeah.
Got to have a gun. You got to have a license. Got to have X, Y, and Z. You got to have a place to go. Once you go to that place, you got to know what to look for, where to go in there, where to stay away from. So it's. I know a lot of people who fish, but I don't know a lot of people who hunt for that reason. Because you kind of need to know somebody. Have to know someone to show you.
Yeah, especially in Texas too. It's private land.
Yeah,
so.
you can't.
I think it's on the surfing thing. I learned to surf the same way you did. I'd just go to the beach and just try to catch everything, and sloppy Galveston stuff and a little bit of Florida stuff.
Yeah.
And my wife's best friend married a guy who grew up in Virginia Beach and would surf all over the place and drive down Outer Banks and stuff. Incredible surfers, like flown all over the world to surf. And we were at Outer Banks a couple years ago, and there was some good surf down at Hatteras. And so we drove down, and I borrowed somebody's board. And I was watching these guys catch all these waves like way easier than I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, what am I doing? Because I was trying to catch them the way a sloppy thing, and they would just blow me over. You know, they were fast moving, and they were like, the second it's starting to lift you, you need to be jumping up on your board and riding it.
Literally.
Where in all the sloppy stuff, I would almost let the wave. I would have the wave actually moving me before I stood up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I haven't surfed a lot since that Outer Banks trip, but I've mentally been kind of focused on is I need to paddle real hard, and I need to jump up sooner and try to be riding the wave before the wave's actually pushing me. Then I ended up on YouTube, like how to surf like a real person knows how to surf, you know? And I realized that I'd basically self-inflicted all of these terrible habits, not really knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, just trying to figure it out. And there's so much more to it. And even when we were down at Port A with these teens, the waves were really good. They were like chest high. I mean, good for Texas, you know, but like chest high. And I was like, all right, I'm going to paddle out. And I was like facilitating kids. I was like, I want to paddle out on the shortboard I've got and try to get one on the shortboard. So I've been mostly longboarding recently just because it's easier and I'm old and tired now. You know?
You can use it more in Texas.
Yeah. And so I'm paddling out. I'm just getting destroyed by these waves, you know, like not making progress. I come back in and I was like, man, I'm wiped. And they're like, oh, you got to go to the pier. There's a little eddy that'll suck you. You just got to kind of dodge the fisherman's hooks. Yeah. But it'll suck you out right past all the waves. And I was like, see, all these little things. I'm 43 now, you know, and still learning like what I'm supposed to be doing to like improve the experience.
That's a game changer. It's like what are those things in the airport that you just get on and move?
Yeah, the little flat escalators.
Yeah.
Sidewalks.
But that is an eternal conflict. Yeah. Pier fishermen and surfers, eternal. I filmed a video like 2 years ago, and I went out with a guy from Galveston, and we were out there, and it was an amazing day. Like, for some reason, just randomly, it just happened to be when I was back home, happened to be when I was shooting this video, and it was an amazing day. So we're out there, we're by the 61st Street Pier, and we were out there just having a good time, and then we take the rip out to it's basically under the dock or right up against the rocks. And so then we'd go out there and we'd paddle over, and so then we'd be dodging fishing lines, and then there'd always be that one guy who'd be like, hey, like get out of here, blah, blah. Yeah. And then there's one guy who's just mad, and he was casting at us. Casting at us. And then like it was so funny because he had a bait caster. Yeah. And so maybe like 2 out of 3 of them, he would try to like just really launch it. And it was back. You see him back there like really trying to untangle it real quick. And then and this kid, I guess he's a kid, he was like in high school, I think. And so one time he actually got it out there, and the guy grabbed the line and bit it. Yep. I'm snapping that thing. Okay. I'm snapping that thing.
That happened to Gunnison when we were, he went the weekend or something. That's my son, before we had gone back down to Port A. And he was doing his first paddle out on the pier, and a hook, got into his wetsuit. And the guy was like, that's why you're not supposed to be paddling on the pier. And Gunnison kept like trying to undo it. And the guy was getting pissed, and Gunnison was getting frustrated because it's like behind him in his wetsuit, you know? So Gunnison did the same thing. He just grabbed it and like bit the line and paddled out with the hook in his wetsuit. Yeah. He's like, I'll figure it out when I get back to the beach.
Yeah. Eternal conflict for sure. And there's no mending of that relationship.
Oh, never. And it's just, I mean, it baffles me how many people that you'd see out there. It's like, they're catching fish, I guess, to bring them out there, but like, there's no way you're catching fish right here so consistently that you'd be this passionate about it, you know? Like, there would be people like, halfway up the pier. There's like one on 91st Street. I don't know if any of y'all familiar with Galveston, and that one's long. So it goes from the beach to like where the end is. So there'd be people like towards the beach end. And so there'd be people yelling at you, and you're like, stand up, and it's shin deep. It's like, dude, there's no way
fish
you're catching fish right here. Like, just go to the end. Yeah. That's where I would go. That's where I'm sure these are meant to be. But like,
next time we have you on, we're gonna bring a pier fisherman on, and we're just gonna have y'all duke it out.
So with you're a shaper, and we just talked about the inconsistency of waves. It's an unanswerable question, but for you, what is the best board shape for Texas?
The best board shape, other than the obvious longboard, because that's the best for anywhere, I would say a fish, because they're short, they have a lot of volume, and really anybody can ride them. Like I would, if anybody was to come up to me and ask if they're like a beginner and they want to get something shorter, I'd say a fish.
Which
and
is
they're
what?
super fun. So a fish is, it looks like a fish tail. Like it looks like
gotcha.
it goes out and then it comes in right here.
Yeah, gotcha.
But like they come in many different orientations and stuff. But it's a fun board.
Cool.
And so even if you're experienced, like a fish is what you'd want to take out there. And on smaller days, that's what you usually see everybody out there on, is fish, or some of the cooler guys or try to bring out like a groveler or some kind of short board. But fish is undefeated.
Like it. And what year, how old were you when you started shaping boards?
18. I was just about to turn 19, so kind of in that threshold. But it was 2017,
Cool.
right after I graduated.
And then one of the teenagers wants to know how long it took you to shape a good rideable board.
So my first one was rideable. That's why I was so excited. I was like, hey,
That's
I'll make
amazing.
a brand out of it.
Yeah.
It was rideable. But
Yeah.
now when I look back at it now, it's like, okay, this thing is a piece of junk. But the first one, I could use it. It's sealed. I still have it. And but the second one was like the one I was like, okay, this is pretty. Like this one was pretty good.
Yeah.
Even looking back on it now, like it still took me probably 4 boards to get probably 4 or 5 to get one that I'd be confident to show somebody who knows about surfing.
Yeah.
And be like, look at this, I made this. But yeah, probably like 4 to get there. But to ride one, it's not that hard. You don't got to be too precise on your first one.
Yeah. Now, how long does it take to build a board?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what's kind of for listeners, lay out your whole process.
So to
more
start, it's a grind to get a blank here. It starts with a piece of foam. Some of them are shaped like surfboards. Some of them are more blocky looking. But, the ones I use, they're kind of have the outline of a surfboard, and they're just solid foam with a piece of wood in the middle. And so you get these, but you're ordering them from California or East Coast or West Coast.
Mhm.
There's
There's no blanks in Texas.
no.
Okay,
no.
interesting.
And so you got to order them, and obviously it's a lot of shipping. So you have to order, to make it worth it, you need to order like 4 usually, 4 or 5 in a box. And so or you order it through a shop, but still they upcharge it, blah blah blah. And so you get this blank in, you finally get it, and then you have to plane it down to what shape you want, or the thickness you want, really. That's the first thing.
Gotcha.
And then from there you go and cut out your outline, and then after that you start to shape it. So when you have the outline, it's still square, kind of, if you're looking at it like a cross section. Then you kind of mellow out the sides to make it rounded. Do whatever you want to do on the bottom, any details, concaves or whatnot. And then from there, you add in your fin boxes. It's just like you take a router, you cut basically a hole in the bottom of it. And then you put your fin boxes in, and then the timely part comes. It's the glassing. So you put a piece of fiberglass, like what boats are made out of. You put that on the top, put resin, either polyurethane or epoxy, and then
Over the fiberglass that's
Yeah.
laying on the
right.
what used to be a blank.
It's liquid.
Yeah. And so then that makes it hard. And so you put that on each side. Once you put it on, it takes like at least, if it's a warm day, it takes at least 4 hours.
Hmm.
But in the winter, I don't have a heater or anything. So, I just leave it all day sometimes.
Gotcha.
And so you put the fiberglass on. And then now you have like a rough piece of hard surfboard. And from there, you put a hot coat on, which is just a clear layer of resin. And so you put that on, and then you sand it to make it smooth. So it's kind of a rough, smooth board. And then from there, this is optional. You don't see it on performance boards because you're trying to keep them light. But all mine I do, just because I don't think it's that big of a difference. I put a gloss coat on. So just like a finishing coat to cover up any spots you may have burnt through on the hot coat. Like burning through means you shaved all the resin off and you got down to the fiberglass.
Oh,
So that's, no, technically.
how many of those were there on your first?
Oh, it's like basically all the way burnt through.
It's like a honeycomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at it, because you can't really tell on a whiteboard, but if you look at it in the light, you can see like honeycomb kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And but I didn't do a gloss coat on that one either.
Okay.
And then from there, you sand it with finer sandpaper, and then you finer, then you polish it. That's how you get it all shiny.
Cool. I might be an idiot and may have missed where this comes in, but where does the coloring come in?
Oh, so yeah, I didn't say that part. So that was just for a whiteboard. So if you want to color it, you can. Usually, it goes in the fiberglassing part. You
Okay, gotcha.
get fancy color you order it from like Hawaii, I think. Fiberglass Hawaii. It's the real deal. That's shout out to them because they make some good stuff. I like starting out. It's like something you just kind of find out, I guess. And starting out, I would just order it off Amazon.
Interesting.
And then it's like you couldn't get anything completely opaque because it was just cheaper or it's not meant for this. And so then you mix this color. It's like a thick paint and it never dries. So if it gets on your finger, on your clothes, on something else, it just never goes away. So it's the almighty struggle. And but you put that in your resin and you mix it up, and so then now you have basically a bucket of paint. And so you put that on the fiberglass, and so when it hardens, instead of hardening clear, it'll harden whatever color you put on there.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And then from there you can put different designs or whatever, different colors and stuff. But that's basically what you do. And there's other little things you can do, but that's the normal way.
In your opinion, who is surfing for?
Surfing's for everybody, as much as I want to go out and catch as many waves as I want without anybody in the way. Like surfing's for everyone. This is like I just said, like God is sending these waves. That's what I believe. And so I want everybody to be able to feel that feeling that I get, feel that extra connection that you have with the world and with the earth. And surfing can't be just for one person because that would go against anything I would believe in for, my life. So surfing's for anybody, man. As much as people are dicks and don't want you to get out there, like it's for you, can't let anybody get in your way. If you want to do it, go do it.
I got kind of one more question for you to end on, pretty broad, but I guess it's a little twofold. One, just overall, what does the ocean mean to you, and what is kind of your goal for somebody with your board specifically?
So the ocean is a freaking amazing place. It kind of baffles me that we have it and then that it just does so many things, like the feeling, the way I see it is, the ocean provides these waves just whenever, kind of at random, if you think about it. Depending on the floor, the wind, the temperature, the tides, like everything kind of changes this wave. And so then we're just going out there and taking advantage of it. And so being out there and just being able to feeling a wave push you, that's just natural. Yeah. It's not the same thing you'd get at like a wave pool. Like it's cool, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so just that extra appreciation that I get from that feeling, and even falling. Cam always makes fun of me for this, but like I like to go out there and I like to just eat it.
Really?
Yeah, because just
get
like
worked.
Humble, just get worked, just be humbled by a good wave, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Maybe not too many times, but like after like a good like freaking beating you take from a wave, it's like, wow, like, that was cool.
That was
so
powerful.
just another level of respect that you have for it. And it's just it's crazy. Sometimes I'm out there and I'll have one of these is life real moments, and I'm just like, wow, like we're really taking advantage of this, and being able to just go out here and be outside and have fun and ride these waves. And so my goal for my boards is to be able to make the most possible, give you the most ability to take these small waves and do the most with it, because that's the big idea for small boards and surfing in Texas, because they're not very powerful, kind of sloppy. So my goal is to make a board that you can go on any day, any size, and be able to catch it and be able to do as much as more than you would with other boards. Be able to go fast on it, be able to do any maneuvers you want to do, and be able to enjoy it like anytime. Because that's really what it's all about, making the most of it, especially since we can't much in Texas.
Sure. Yeah.
So, that's the goal for that.
Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Plug your stuff though, real quick. Where can people find you? Do you have? Are you shaping currently?
Yeah. So I am shaping right now. I don't have a website at the moment, but I just kind of do everything through Instagram. It's just at StrandedTikiSurfboards, no spaces or capitals or anything. So.
Yeah. Sweet, man. Andy Williams, ladies and gents.